So ask yourself who is really in control of your mind right now, you or the voice of fear? Because the answer to that question will determine the quality of every day you live and every dream you either achieve or lose.
Welcome to Napoleon Hill's Daily Millionaire Mindset, where we teach you the timeless principles that turn ambition into achievement. Subscribe today and start creating the life you deserve.
Have you ever wondered why, despite your best intentions, you sometimes sabotage your own success? Why you procrastinate, doubt yourself, or let fear stop you from doing what you know must be done? My friend, the truth is, your greatest enemy does not live outside of you. It lives within your own mind. The devil does not appear with horns and fire. He comes dressed as your own thoughts, your excuses, your fears, your comfort zone. He whispers softly, "You're not ready yet," when opportunity knocks. He tells you, you might fail, when courage tries to rise. He convinces you to play small, to wait, to delay, until one day you realize you've traded your potential for the illusion of safety. The devil controls your mind not by force, but by influence. He does not need chains when he can use your habits. Every time you give into laziness, every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," every time you drown your focus in distraction, he wins a little more control. He feeds on indecision, grows stronger through fear, and thrives on self-pity. He knows that the easiest person to deceive is the one who never questions their own thoughts. So he plants seeds, tiny silent seeds of doubt. What if you fail? What will people say? You're not as good as they are. And when you believe these lies long enough, they become your truth. But here's the greatest secret. The devil has no real power over a disciplined mind. The moment you begin to think consciously, to direct your thoughts with purpose, his grip weakens. When you replace fear with faith, distraction with focus, and doubt with decision, you take back command of your own kingdom. Your mind is the battlefield. The thoughts you entertain determine who wins. If you let negative emotions linger, you open the door to the enemy. But if you fill your mind daily with clarity, gratitude, and purpose, you build a fortress that no darkness can penetrate. He cannot control the man or woman who decides, truly decides, to think for themselves. Because thought is the beginning of freedom, and the power to think rightly is the power to create your own heaven, even in the midst of hell. To the invisible enemy that hides in your own thoughts, take back your mind and you take back your life. For the devil's greatest trick is not making you sin. It's making you forget that you have the power to choose. Most people spend their lives searching for the source of their problems in other people, circumstances, or fate itself, never realizing that the true battle is fought in silence, in the hidden chambers of their own thoughts. The devil does not come with fire, horns, or visible darkness. He comes disguised as your own voice, the quiet whisper that tells you to wait, to doubt, to fear, to settle. His power lies not in the chaos he causes around you, but in the confusion he creates within you. When you feel a sudden lack of confidence, when you tell yourself that success is for others and not for you, when you replay old failures until they become your identity, that is how he gains ground, quietly and invisibly. The devil's control begins the moment you stop being the master of your own thinking. He thrives in your mental autopilot when you go through your days reacting instead of deciding, blaming instead of building, and worrying instead of working. He has no need to destroy you directly. All he must do is convince you to destroy yourself by believing the wrong thoughts. He wraps chains around your imagination, making you believe your situation is permanent, your abilities limited, and your dreams foolish. He makes you overthink your next step until hesitation becomes your habit. And the most dangerous part, you never realize it's happening. You think you're being cautious, realistic, or humble, but in truth, you're being deceived. The devil's most powerful disguise is logic that keeps you small. He whispers, "You'll try when the time is right," knowing the perfect time never comes. He says, "You're not good enough yet," knowing you will keep preparing forever but never begin. His weapon is suggestion, and his battlefield is thought. Once he has planted doubt, he lets it grow through your emotions. Fear takes root in your chest, anxiety tightens your breath, and you mistake this tension for truth. You begin to believe that your feelings define your limits, forgetting that they are only reflections of what you think. The devil knows that if he can control your thinking, he can control your world, because every decision, every action, every step towards success or failure starts with a single thought. That's why he never attacks your body first. He attacks your mind. He doesn't need to break your hands if he can break your will. He doesn't need to take your opportunities if he can make you blind to them. He doesn't need to lock you in a cell if he can convince you you're already trapped. This invisible enemy works patiently. He waits for moments of weakness, when you're tired, when you're disappointed, when things don't go your way. That's when he speaks loudest. He makes you replay painful memories, reminding you of every mistake you've made until your self-belief crumbles under the weight of regret. He distracts you with comparison, showing you how far others have gone, not to inspire you, but to make you feel behind. He thrives on the energy of your despair because every moment you feel powerless, you feed him your authority. But the most tragic part is that his power only exists with your permission. He cannot enter a mind that guards its thoughts, that questions its fears, that observes emotions without becoming them. Yet most people never train their minds, never learn to separate their true voice from the voice of deception. They assume every thought that enters their head belongs to them. And that is the greatest illusion of all. The devil doesn't need to possess you. He only needs to convince you to think his thoughts as your own. Once you mistake fear for truth, doubt for logic, and hesitation for wisdom, he doesn't have to do anything else. You will stop yourself from ever becoming who you were meant to be. The devil does not need to break you with storms or disasters. He only needs to control your habits and keep you comfortable. The most dangerous prison is not made of bars or locks. It is made of routine convenience and comfort that keeps you from growing. Every habit you repeat without thought becomes a thread in the web. He spins around your potential. When you choose the easy path, when you silence your inner call to act, when you surrender your time to distractions, you are quietly handing him the keys to your destiny. He knows that as long as you remain busy but not productive, moving but not advancing, you will never notice the subtle control he has over you. The devil thrives not in chaos but in comfort, because comfort dulls ambition, weakens discipline, and blinds the mind to purpose. He whispers softly that you deserve to rest a little longer, that you can start tomorrow, that there is no rush. And before you realize it, tomorrow becomes next week becomes next year, and the dream that once burned inside you fades into a distant memory. He wants you to confuse motion with progress, to scroll, to watch, to consume, to fill your time with meaningless actions that make you feel busy but achieve nothing. Because when your mind is occupied with noise, it cannot hear the voice of your higher self. The devil's genius lies in making you comfortable with mediocrity. He knows that a man who is hungry for growth is dangerous, but a man who has accepted comfort is harmless. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," you are giving him a victory. Every time you choose what feels good over what makes you better, you are signing a silent contract with limitation. He feeds on your inconsistency. He knows that if he can get you to quit on yourself just once, he can make it a pattern. He hides behind your excuses, too tired, too busy, too uncertain, because he understands that excuses are like rust. They spread slowly until your entire willpower corrodes. The devil uses habit as his camouflage. The longer you repeat an action, the more natural it feels, even if it leads you nowhere. Eventually, you stop questioning it. That's when he wins, not through force, but through familiarity. He manipulates your environment, too. He surrounds you with comfort zones disguised as safety, friends who don't challenge you, routines that keep you busy but unfulfilled, entertainment that numbs your mind instead of expanding it. He knows that if he can make your world small enough, your dreams will shrink to fit it. He tells you that security is better than growth, that certainty is better than adventure, and that comfort is better than purpose. And because you crave peace more than progress, you agree. You trade your potential for predictability, your passion for peace of mind. But peace without growth is only disguised decay. What makes his control so powerful is that it feels good. Laziness feels like relief, distraction feels like relaxation, and avoidance feels like safety. You rarely question pleasure, and he knows this. So he packages his traps in the form of comfort. He doesn't scare you into surrendering. He soothes you into submission. He replaces your hunger for excellence with an appetite for ease. And slowly, day by day, your discipline weakens, your focus blurs, and your spirit becomes numb. Yet all of this begins with one small choice. One moment when you decide to delay, one moment when you say, not now. It seems harmless at first, but repetition turns it into identity. You begin to believe that you are someone who never follows through, someone who never finishes. And once you believe it, you live it. That is how the devil controls your mind, by teaching you to worship comfort more than purpose, to choose what feels good over what makes you great. He doesn't need to chain your body when your habits already hold your mind captive. Doubt is the most powerful tool the devil uses to control the human mind, because it disguises itself as logic, as caution, as reason. It never enters through the front door of your thoughts with bold lies. It sneaks in quietly, whispering questions that seem harmless at first. What if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you're not good enough? These small doubts seem like protection, but in truth they are poison. Once they take root, they begin to spread through every corner of your mind until your confidence is eaten from the inside out. The devil understands that he doesn't need to destroy your faith in the world if he can destroy your faith in yourself. Doubt is his invisible weapon, silent, slow, but fatal to dreams. He doesn't need to convince you that you will fail. He only needs to make you uncertain, because uncertainty freezes motion. A man full of doubt never takes the first step, and the longer he waits, the stronger the doubt grows. The devil feeds on hesitation. He makes you replay your weaknesses, magnify your mistakes, and question your worth. You begin to seek approval from others, forgetting that your power never came from their validation. You start measuring your progress by comparison, and every time you look around, you find someone who seems further ahead, smarter, or more talented. That's how he keeps you trapped, by keeping your eyes on others instead of your own purpose. Doubt creates a storm inside the mind. It makes you hear two voices in constant conflict, the voice of your potential and the voice of your fear. One says, you can do this. The other whispers, who are you to try? The devil amplifies that second voice until it becomes louder, more convincing, and more logical. He knows that if he can make fear sound reasonable, you will choose it every time. You'll call it being realistic, when in truth, you're just surrendering to doubt disguised as wisdom. That's why most people never chase their true calling. They convince themselves they're being careful when they're actually being controlled. The devil does not rush. He plants doubt like a seed and waits for you to water it with your thoughts. Every time you imagine failure, every time you replay what could go wrong, you're feeding his influence. Eventually, the seed becomes a forest so thick that you can't see the path forward anymore. You tell yourself the timing isn't right, that you need more money, more confidence, more support. But these are only symptoms of a deeper infection, your belief that you are not enough as you are. And that's exactly what the devil wants you to believe. Because once you think you're incomplete, you'll never act boldly, you'll never trust your instincts, and you'll always look for permission to live your own life. Doubt has a strange power. It paralyzes the strong and strengthens the weak. It makes you focus on what you can't do instead of what you can. It turns possibility into paralysis. You start asking, what if I fail, instead of what if I fly? And when you keep feeding those negative questions, they turn into beliefs. The devil knows that the mind always finds evidence for what it believes. If you believe you are limited, you'll prove it to yourself every day. You'll see obstacles where there are none and call them signs that you shouldn't try. That's how he wins, by turning your imagination, the most powerful tool of creation, into a weapon of destruction. When you let doubt live in your mind long enough, it becomes your identity. You stop saying, "I feel uncertain," and start saying, "I am not capable." That subtle shift is how you lose yourself. The devil celebrates every time you replace courage with overthinking, faith with fear, and confidence with hesitation. He doesn't take your dreams from you. He convinces you to bury them yourself. You begin to play small not because you lack ability, but because you no longer believe you deserve more. That is the quiet tragedy of doubt. It doesn't kill your dreams suddenly. It slowly convinces you to stop feeding it until it dies in silence. A disciplined and aware mind is a fortress that the devil cannot penetrate, because discipline is the guardian of thought and awareness is its light. The devil thrives in darkness. He hides in the shadows of confusion, procrastination, and unexamined emotion. When you begin to think consciously, to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them, his influence starts to dissolve. Awareness exposes deception. It allows you to recognize that not every thought that enters your mind belongs to you. Discipline gives that awareness strength. It turns understanding into power and power into action. Without discipline, awareness is a candle in the wind, flickering but easily extinguished. With discipline, it becomes an eternal flame that burns away every trace of fear and doubt. The devil's control depends on your inability to focus. He uses distraction as his tool because a distracted mind is a defenseless mind. Every moment you spend wandering between ideas, switching between desires, or chasing temporary pleasures, he takes another step inside your mind. Discipline, however, is the act of closing the gates to all that noise. It is saying no to what weakens you so you can say yes to what strengthens you. The disciplined person does not allow emotion to make decisions or fear to write their story. They act according to purpose, not mood. And purpose is something the devil cannot corrupt because it requires awareness, an understanding of why you do what you do and where it leads. When you are aware, you begin to notice how the devil works. You see how he whispers excuses when opportunity appears, how he fills your mind with distractions when you try to focus, and how he turns small discomforts into reasons to quit. Awareness lets you catch him in the act. You start to notice the invisible tug when fear tries to stop you, and instead of obeying it, you analyze it. You ask, "Why am I feeling this?" That simple question disarms him, because the moment you observe fear instead of reacting to it, you take back control. The devil cannot manipulate a mind that questions itself. He needs you to react blindly, to surrender to emotion, to run without thinking. Awareness forces him into the open, and once you see the trick, it loses its power. Discipline is the next step. It is not about punishment. It is about protection. It is the daily act of choosing progress over pleasure, truth over comfort, and consistency over chaos. The devil hates consistency because it builds momentum, and momentum is the one thing that breaks his influence completely. Each small disciplined act, waking early, finishing what you start, controlling your emotions, keeping promises to yourself, adds a brick to the wall that separates your higher self from his reach. He thrives in weak moments, and discipline reduces them. It teaches you to act based on principle rather than impulse, and when you live by principle, manipulation becomes impossible. Awareness and discipline together create clarity, and clarity is the death of confusion. When your mind is clear, the devil has no hiding place. You see the difference between your desires and your distractions, between your truth and his lies. You stop mistaking fear for intuition and laziness for peace. You become the observer of your thoughts rather than the prisoner of them. The disciplined mind chooses what to think, when to act, and how to respond. It doesn't get dragged into negativity or temptation because it understands that every thought is a seed and every decision is a doorway. The devil's influence can only grow when you forget that you're the gardener. The battle for your mind is not about strength. It is about awareness. The devil does not fear loud words or bold claims. He fears quiet self-control. When you can sit in silence, see your fear, and still choose faith, you become untouchable. Discipline turns your mind from a playground of chaos into a kingdom of order. Awareness lights every dark corner so that no deceit can survive. In that state, the devil has no entry point, because his only weapon is ignorance, and the aware, disciplined mind destroys it simply by being awake. Freedom lies in choice, and that is the one truth the devil does not want you to remember. He cannot take your power to choose, but he can make you forget that you ever had it. Every human being is born with the ability to direct their own thoughts, to decide their own beliefs, and to shape their own destiny through conscious decisions. But the devil's cleverness lies in making you believe that your circumstances decide for you, that life happens to you instead of through you. When you accept that illusion, you hand him the steering wheel of your mind. The moment you stop choosing consciously, he starts choosing for you. Every negative emotion, every defeated thought, every "I can't" that escapes your lips, those are his decisions spoken through your mouth. He operates through suggestion, not command. He plants ideas that sound like your own voice. You can't change now. You're too late. It's not your fault, it's just fate. These phrases are his subtle chains, disguised as comfort. The more you repeat them, the more powerless you feel. Slowly you begin to live reactively instead of intentionally. You respond to life instead of directing it. And that is when the devil celebrates, because a person who has forgotten their power of choice is the easiest person to control. You become like a leaf in the wind, carried by every external influence, mood, opinion, failure, temptation, never realizing that you have the power to stand firm against all of it simply by deciding. Choice is the highest form of freedom, but also the highest responsibility. The devil knows most people do not want the weight of that responsibility. It is easier to blame others, to blame luck, to blame life itself, than to look inward and admit, I am where I am because of what I chose. So he keeps you distracted, emotional, and confused because a confused mind avoids decisions. When you don't choose, he chooses for you. When you avoid change, he builds your cage. And each small surrender, a little fear, a little compromise, a little excuse, becomes another link in the chain of helplessness. The devil's greatest success is not when you do wrong, it is when you stop believing you have the right to choose what's right. But the truth is always simple. Every moment presents a decision. You can choose courage over fear, faith over doubt, action over hesitation, gratitude over complaint. The devil's influence ends exactly where your decision begins. Every time you choose consciously, you weaken his grip. He loses ground when you take responsibility for your emotions. When you stop saying, I can't help how I feel, and start saying, I choose what I focus on. That one shift changes everything, because what you focus on expands. If you focus on darkness, it grows. If you focus on light, it multiplies. The devil cannot survive in a mind that chooses light again and again, no matter how small the spark. He thrives on indecision. The longer you delay a choice, the stronger his hold becomes. He turns, I'll do it later, into, I'll never do it. He teaches you to wait for perfect conditions that never come. But life itself is shaped by imperfect decisions made with faith. The greatest creators, leaders, and thinkers all had one thing in common. They decided. Not because they were fearless, but because they refused to let fear make their choices for them. That is the essence of freedom, to act even when doubt screams the loudest. The devil will always whisper, but your will always has the final word. Every time you act with intention, every time you say, no, I decide who I am, you reclaim your throne. Freedom is not something given. It is something chosen over and over again. The devil's greatest victory is to make you forget that truth. But the moment you remember that you can choose your thoughts, your emotions, and your direction, his illusion collapses. You become the master of your own mind once more. Your life begins to shift not because the world changed, but because you finally realize that you were never powerless. You were only persuaded to forget your power to choose.
If this inspired you, subscribe and follow for more, and don't miss the other videos we've lined up for you. Keep learning, keep growing. Your next breakthrough could be one click away.